Our midweek reflection comes from the passage found in John chapter 21, beginning with verse 15. Please hear the word of the Lord. When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my lambs." A second time he said to him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." And Jesus said to him, "Tend my sheep." He said to him the third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter felt hurt because he said to him the third time, "Do you love me?" And he said to him, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my sheep. Very truly I tell you that when you were younger, you used to fasten your own belt and go wherever you wished. But when you grow old, you will stretch out your hands and someone else will fasten a belt around you and take you where you do not wish to go." He said this to indicate the kind of death by which he would glorify God. After this, he said to him, "Follow me." The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. Much has been written about the different vocabulary used in the Greek here between John and between Peter and Jesus. Terms for the word love. And there are some interesting correlations to be made in a progression of themes there, using the different terms for sacrificial love versus more of a brotherly or lower key love that is not quite sacrificial in meaning. But we need to recall that these are John's embellishments perhaps to the text, because Peter and Jesus were speaking Aramaic, not Greek. So while there may be a lot to be said and written about the difference in the terms and how they are implicated here, the stronger context that we need to look at for understanding this strange passage and why John would include it here in his writings would be the passage before the crucifixion, where Peter denies Jesus 3 times. He had been declaring his love for Christ. He had been declaring that he would follow Jesus, that he would be faithful, that he would protect him. And then in the moment when it most mattered, seemingly, Peter denied even knowing Jesus 3 times. And Jesus had advised Peter that this would happen. He had warned him. But he had also said, once that is all done and you have come back to yourself, go and strengthen and encourage my disciples. I still have a job for you to do, even after you fail and deny me. That is forgiveness. That is grace. It expresses for us an understanding of how far God goes with this concept of forgiving us and welcoming us as children with all of our doubts and fears and failures. But John throws us this new scene after a scene of breakfast on the beach with the disciples fishing once more, going through the motions again of Jesus calling them to become disciples. And that's what this story is for Peter. It's a new beginning. Jesus had announced ahead of time that Peter would deny him. Jesus had announced ahead of time that when Peter was done with that denial, he had a task to complete. And now Jesus finds the disciples on the beach. They have been casting their nets, and he told them, as he had at the beginning of the ministry, to cast their nets on the other side of the boat. Peter had taken off his clothing and swum ashore to be near Jesus again. And Jesus seems to await until all the disciples are gathered around so that this conversation has an audience. And he asks Peter before the rest of the disciples gathered around, "Do you love me?" "Yes, Lord." "Feed my sheep." 3 times this conversation goes on, allowing Peter to reclaim his love for Christ and his desire to follow and be faithful. And Jesus affirms him the 3rd time as well. "Feed my sheep, take care of my lambs. I have a job for you to do. I still want you to be one of my disciples." And then he closes this passage off with those words that had started the whole thing for Peter. "Follow me." That is grace. That is forgiveness. That is the gospel in a nutshell. God does not use us as disposable servants who are only allowed to serve for a time until we mess up. Rather, he calls us to follow him through thick and thin, to get back up when we have fallen down. Comes to meet us where we are, dusts us off, and sets us back on the road of discipleship. You see, forgiveness and grace are not about becoming perfect and that we never mess up again. Rather, it's about getting back up and being on the path that we have been called to follow. It's about aligning our lives with the life of Christ and becoming the disciples that we are called to become through our ups and our downs, through thick and through thin, in times where it is easy and in times where it is difficult to be a disciple. Peter was very unsure of his fitness to continue serving because he had so classically failed. But Jesus offers him the chance to redeem himself. And he also warns him that down the road that he was to follow, there would come another time when his life would be on the line as he thought it was before the guards while Jesus was imprisoned. He would have another opportunity to declare his faithfulness to Christ. And when it mattered, he would come through. You see, that also is what grace and forgiveness are about. Our transformation. Our letting go of this concept that we have to become something that seemingly is static. And that if we were to mess up, then we are no longer usable. But God doesn't use us as disposable dishes. Rather, as children, he lovingly wishes to restore and set back on the path laid out before us. And so forgiveness and grace come and work in our lives to restore us, to challenge us, and to call us forward on the path God has set us upon. Do you love me? Is Christ's question for us as well. And the other question that goes with it is simple. Follow me. Through ups and downs, through victories, through defeats, getting back up on the horse, dusting ourselves off, and continuing the path of following Christ in faithfulness. That is the life to which we are called. Are we up to that challenge?